it's your girl Leah and I'm back with a banger. So today, after like my 8-month hiatus off YouTube, I'm back and doing a Tiger King conspiracy theory video. So let's jump right on into it. Just a quick disclaimer, if you see me looking over here, it's because I'm looking at my laptop. It has my theories that I'm going to be talking about, and I have my little notes that I wrote, so that is why I'm looking over. But anyway, so I'm going to get into the video. I hope... What was that? The heat just came on. I'm going to be talking about a few Tiger King conspiracy theories. One theory that everybody has about Miss Carole Baskin and Jeff Lowe, I'm debunking that theory. And another disclaimer, if you haven't seen Tiger King, go watch it. I mean, can I give spoilers? I don't know. But probably stuff you've already heard of anyway. But just a disclaimer, if you haven't seen it, maybe go watch it so you have a better understanding of what I'm going to be talking about in this video. This theory I'm going to be talking about, and probably the most popular theory hands down, is that Miss Carole Baskin killed her husband, Don Lewis. So here we go. So Don Lewis, I believe, is Carole Baskin's second husband. Carole and Don got married in 1991, and Don went missing on August 18th, 1997. So as this theory goes, one day Don Lewis was going to Costa Rica to handle some business like he's always done before, and unlike every other trip, on this time Mr. Don Lewis did not return back from his trip to Costa Rica. So after a few days of Don not being back, Miss Carole girl, she was like, where's my husband? She know her husband, he dead. But she was like, police, he gone. So they opened up an investigation. So they went to this airport because Don had a few planes that he flew, and he actually had his pilot's license, but they got revoked the day after he got them, but he still was flying illegally anyway. And so he had a few small planes, but they weren't like large commercial planes that, you know, you fly out of real airports. So when they got to this airport, they found Don's van with the keys inside. Now, if you're going to Costa Rica, no matter where you're going, if you're just going to the grocery store, or if you're at a quick Target run and done, you take your keys out of your vehicle, especially if you're leaving the United States and going to Costa Rica. You're gonna take your keys no matter where you're going. So that was kind of sus, is that they found his van parked at the airport with his keys still inside. So the thing I do want to mention is that Carole was pretty active in Don's case, trying to help and find him, which I think was just a cover up for her to be like, ooh, they won't pick me as a suspect. But I think she is the #1 suspect. I think sis killed him. But anyway, we'll keep going. So Carole was, you know, helping the police try to find information and whatnot. And so yeah. So I do want to point out and mention that Don's children, and I believe his ex-wife as well, believe that Carole killed Don for his money, because she did not have a lot of money. Miss Carole did not have a bag. Don, I think, was planning on divorcing her, and Carole was like, oh, if he divorces me, I'm not going to get any money. So it is estimated that Don left behind $5 million, and according to the show Tiger King, when they were interviewing Don's family, they estimated that they only got about 10% of his money, and Carole got the other portion of the money. So as the theory goes, Miss Carole Baskin killed her husband and put him in a meat grinder and fed him to the tigers, which is why it would make sense that there's no body, that there's no trace of him, that there's no evidence. So regarding the meat grinder, people were like, check the meat grinder for DNA, but the police refused to check it, so there's no way to tell if there is DNA on the meat grinder. Also during this case, they asked Carole to take a polygraph test, a lie detector test, whatever you want to call it, polygraph to be official. They asked her to take it, but Carole refused to take the lie detector test and said because her lawyers advised her not to. Now personally, I don't care what my lawyers advised me to do. If they thought I was the #1 suspect for murdering my husband, I'd be like, girl, hook me up to the test of this thing. But although Carol did refuse, Don's kids did say they would volunteer to take a test. So since they can't really prove that he's actually dead, you have to wait 5 years to be presumably dead or legally dead by the government. So one thing that I think is really funny here is, well, not funny, but sus, is the fact that Carol, besides the fact that she didn't take a polygraph test, 5 years and 1 day after her husband died, so on August 19th, 2002, she had Don declared legally dead. Now, me personally, I don't know about everybody else, but personally, if my husband was missing, I don't think I would just want to close him and be like, oh, he dead, girl. Like, close the case, he dead. Like, kind of sus. But I mean, after 5 years, he didn't come back. But like, he might have came back on the 6th year, girl. So, hope Carol didn't kill him. But I think she did, personally. So let me know what y'all think. But it doesn't add up. And now all of a sudden, Carol has money. Like, it don't make sense, bro. You killed that man. You killed that man. And he gone. You fed him to tigers. Oh, and one more thing is that Carol, she said in the show, Miss Carol said something along the lines of, tigers like meat, not humans. Tigers do not know the difference between human meat and animal meat. Tigers are just trying to eat, girl. So with that being said, what do you think happened? Do you think Miss Carol killed Don? Do you think he's still alive? Do you think she tried to kill him for money? I mean, I think she killed him for that bag, sis, but let me know what you think. Alright, so our next theory is about Jeff Lowe and Carol Baskin once again. So I know a popular theory between those two is that Jeff is low-key like Carol's husband, or they were married at one point, or they're married now. I don't know, it's kind of mixed up, but Jeff was allegedly her husband. Me personally, I don't believe that theory. I don't get that theory, and I don't understand why they would ever be married. So I came up with my own theory, or at least I hope I came up with it. In my mind, I came up with it. I don't know if anybody else has said this in a video, so if they have, I promise I'm not trying to stir stuff. I thought I really did something and came up with this. And so the theory is that Jeff Lowe and Carol Baskin were not married, but they are business associates. And I think this makes complete sense. Just hear me out. So we know that Jeff took over Joe's zoo, the GW Zoo, because of financial reasons and because Carol was suing him. And if Jeff took over the zoo, then they would have to restart the lawsuit. So we know that Jeff took over the zoo because of a lot of reasons, but he took over the zoo, and so Joe thought that he was still going to be the boss, but Joe was like, So personally, I think that Carol kind of planted, or Carol and Jeff kind of were talking. It was like, Jeff, like, figure out some way to kind of take over the zoo, because Jeff and Joe, even in the show, they said this, but like, they didn't hate each other, but like towards the time when Joe was leaving the zoo, then yeah. But like at the beginning, when Jeff took over the zoo initially, they didn't hate each other. They were cordial, but they didn't really like each other either. It was kind of just like a business transaction, a one and done kind of thing. So I think that Carol knew that, and Carol was like, hey Jeff, like, let's do something. Let's be in correlation. Let's be a part. Let's be a tag team, whatever you want to call it. And so they had it set up so that Jeff would take over the zoo and Carol would kind of take everything away from Joe without taking everything away from Joe. So I think that Carol came up with this idea so that she could, one, ruin Joe, and two, maybe take over the zoo or take the animals, or just be a partner with the zoo. But then again, I don't think Carol would want to be affiliated with like, hey, like, I run the zoo, because she had the Big Cat Sanctuary. Big Cat Rescue? She had the Big Cat thing, you know what I'm talking about. The reason why I think they're business partners is because they both hated Joe, which, like I said before, Jeff and Joe didn't really hate each other at first, but towards the time when Jeff, these J names, when Jeff kicked Joe out of the zoo, then he like hated them at that time. But I think they both just wanted to gain profit from the zoo, which they kind of struggled for a while, because when Joe left, Joe was kind of like the thing everybody wanted to see, but like when Joe left, they kind of didn't really get business for a while. But now they're rebuilding it. But anyway, so I think this was most likely a setup by Carol. Just not really even about the animals, but more so to cripple Joe and to hurt Joe, which leads us into the next theory. But pretty much the sum of that theory, Jeff and Carol are business associates. They both hate Joe, want to take him down and get him out of the tiger industry. So my next theory is that when Carol was suing Joe, all the multiple lawsuits and all the times when she wanted his assets, I don't believe it was because she wanted to actually take what Joe had. Because I think Carol might have had more money than Joe at one point. Well, shoot, when she killed Don, she became a millionaire. So I don't know. But I think her lawsuits were so meant to be like, aha, I can take everything from you if I want to. Not that I actually want what you have. But it was just another way for her to, I think, show dominance. And to kind of be like, Joe, like, you aren't as powerful as you think. Like, I can take your money, I can take your animals, I can take your zoo, and I can take everything else away from you as well. So I think it was more so meant to cripple him financially, hurt him mentally and financially. I think it was more so not even a financial gain for her, but just like a mental victory and like a physical victory. Because it's like, hey, we're beefing, but like, you can't beef with me if you don't have anything. You can't come for me, Joe, because you don't have nothing. So I think that was her whole agenda, was not to actually gain his assets. Well, I feel like gaining his assets was like a bonus to her, but I don't think she actually wanted them. She wanted to hurt him more than to take his stuff. So the next theory I have is about Joe's studio burning down. And that's why I'm kind of on the fence about what I actually believe. I don't know what I believe. I'm kind of, like I said, I'm on the fence. But let's get into it. So Joe went to a funeral up north, a lot of states, a lot of cities away. So he went to a funeral out of town. And while he was out of town, somebody came and burned down his studio where all his like footage was, you know, like a studio, not like music studio, but like his filming area where the computers were, all the footage and stuff for that documentary that they were making, everything was in there. And that studio also housed some alligators and a few other animals. So personally, I don't even know personally, but for theory wise, I think that Joe knew that the studio was gonna get burned down. I don't think Joe physically burnt it down because he was out of town at the funeral, but I think he knew who burnt it down. I think he had somebody set it up to burn down his studio. I think 100% he was like, hey, I'm going out of town, like, I need you to go burn down the studio. Because I think at this time he was kind of being investigated by the feds. And he knew that in that documentary that the producer dude, what's his name? I forgot his name. The producer dude, whatever he is, you know, the one who's sitting there in that coffee shop like smoking, yeah, him. He said that they were always recording 24/7. They had cameras on everybody the whole time. So they were always filming. And so by Joe being, I think at that time he wasn't really public with like, hey, they're pursuing me, like, but he knew that the FBI was looking at him, and so that's why he had the studio burned down, but he made it seem like somebody else did it. Because I think it's kind of sus how the one time Joe actually leaves, then his studio gets burnt down. And also, like, is Joe really just gonna publicize like, hey, by the way, I'm going to this funeral, like, bye? Because obviously people would know that other people are at the zoo. So I feel like if somebody was gonna come and burn down his zoo or his studio, they just randomly happened to pick the time when he was gone, like, I think that's a little sus. But like I said, I don't think Joe physically burned down the studio, but I think he knew who burned down the studio, and I think he probably paid somebody to burn down the studio. So like I said before, like a million times, he probably at this time was being pursued or followed or stalked, or the government was like looking into him, trying to get tips. and he wanted in that studio, since all that footage was there when they captured everything, he just wanted all that footage and that evidence to be gone and destroyed, so that the government or people at the zoo who didn't like him couldn't use that footage against him. So in conclusion, I think that this fire was an inside job. It was a setup. I don't think everybody at the zoo knew this was a setup. I think this was probably just a setup between Joe and whoever he had burned down the studio. I think they were probably the only few people who knew that it was an inside job. But and also this kind of correlates, but right before he left the zoo, well, kind of got kicked out, he also burned all that paperwork. He wiped off everybody's computers. Like, he kind of got rid of all the evidence that the government could use against him. So I think that was just another thing that wasn't really related to the studio fire, but I just wanted to throw that in. So this is my last theory. This is the one that everybody's talking about. This is the big theory, well, besides Carol killing her husband. This is the really big theory on Tiger King. This is how the show ends. This is about Joe trying to kill Carol. Right now, it's important to mention that Joe is currently in prison serving a 22-year sentence for murder for hire, trying to kill Carol, trying to get her killed. So in the show, they made it clear as day that they all hated Carol. Nobody liked her. Everybody wanted to see her dead. I mean, they said that throughout the show, and a lot of people who were involved with the zoo and were on the show, they all said they all hated Carol and they hoped that somebody would kill her. Obviously, with that being said, they all wanted her dead. But who wanted her dead more? Mr. Joe Exotic. So Joe was, you know, he probably wasn't the smartest, you know, apple on the tree. But I 100% believe that Joe was not stupid enough to hire somebody to kill Carol. And let alone Alan for $3,000, who was a crackhead. And Joe even said in the show, like, why would I hire a $3,000 crackhead to kill Carol? Which I think is so funny. That was so funny to me. I died. I rewatched that a few times. Along with Joe not being dumb enough to hire somebody to kill Carol, I don't think Joe would especially be stupid enough to hire somebody to kill Carol while he's being investigated by the FBI. Like, this man is being investigated by the FBI. He should have known that somebody probably would have leaked all this information. I don't think Joe would have been stupid enough to tell people, like, hey, like, this is how we're gonna kill Carol. Like, we can get you to kill Carol. This is what we're doing. I just don't see why he would try to kill Carol or hire somebody to kill Carol while he's being investigated by the government. That just doesn't make sense. No matter if you're a crackhead, a meth head, you smoke weed, you're an alcoholic, you should have enough sense to not try to kill somebody while the government is trying to find a reason to put you in jail. And I just, along with Joe, I'm agreeing with Joe. I don't know why he would pick Alan the crackhead to kill Carol Baskin for $3K. Like, $3,000, girl. $3,000 to kill Carol. Like, I don't see it. Along with, you know, the obvious, like, why would you do that? It's kind of dumb. I don't know why, or I don't think Joe would be dumb. This theory is just me saying I don't think Joe would be dumb enough to fill in the blank. So keeping that vibe going, I don't think Joe would be dumb enough to expose this plan to, like, everybody at the zoo. Because Joe, he was like, okay, look, Carol is on this bike path. Look, there's nobody around. We're gonna go in here and kill her. Like, he just had so many people in the studio while he was saying this, and it's like, bruh. I think if Joe is really trying to hire somebody, he probably would have told, like, Jeff, which we're getting to him in a minute, and then Alan, because I was supposed to be the hitman, which I think this is all just a setup. My camera do be dying while I'm talking about theories, but
okay, so I told y'all the camera died, but anyway, I was just saying I think that it's a setup between Carol, Jeff, James, or whatever his name is, the fat dude who, like, busted into the FBI, and then Alan, the crackhead, Joe. I think Trump will pardon Joe.
Like I was just saying, I think he'll be pardoned by Trump. I feel like that'd be really funny, and I really hope it happens. But I think that's what happened. So let me know what you guys think about all these theories. What do you believe? Where do you stand? Do you think Trump should pardon Joe? Do you think Carol killed Don? What do you think about all these theories, girl? Make sure to like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on your post notifications. And I'm back, and it feels so good. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed these conspiracy theories. I really haven't seen that many Tiger King videos or Tiger King conspiracy, so I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this were some different theories than what you've seen before. I look like a bum, but we're in quarantine, so I don't care. I only put on makeup when I have to go to work because I'm apparently essential. But that's it.